High quality, value, and service the way it used to be.
You just can't beat Carpet Gallery for their service.
They asked me if they could help me, and I said I just wanted to look. They let me look. And I was really pleased. First of all, that really impressed me when I had a headache from the other places.
I was the person to be satisfied.
Prices are slashed on thousands of styles and colors, starting at $9.88 per square yard, and Alexander Smith starting at $15.88. Plus no payment and no interest for 6 months. Sale ends Saturday at Carpet Gallery.
In Ottumwa, tune to Channel 23 for better reception of TV8.
Good morning. I'm Charles Kuralt, and this is Sunday Morning. The main roads of this country went through the main towns once upon a time. The roads linked the cities like beads on a string. Now our highways have bypassed the cities. So have our politicians. A lot of urban Americans think it's time for a change. David Culhane will report our Sunday morning cover story.
One of the most intractable and long-neglected problems facing the newly elected President Clinton is the plague of ills eating away at the inner cities of America. Does this president have the money or a national consensus to do anything meaningful? Come with us this Sunday morning here to Los Angeles, a microcosm for cities all across the country. Hear their cry for help. Hear their fear that society does not really have the will to assist them.
Later on this morning, we will visit the birthplace of that newly famous American, Billy Blythe. And who is Billy Blythe? You'll find out from his old friends and neighbors in a place called Hope. A Master's Imagination is a story from Betsy Aaron.
A Rene Magritte apple can set your teeth on edge. Are his French breads flying? His covered couple is disturbing. And yet, Rene Magritte said he wasn't trying to provoke anyone or anything with his work. Later on Sunday morning, there'll be more of the surrealist Magritte, much more. The paintings are all part of the first major retrospective to be held in the United States in over 25 years. And all those paintings are right here in New York's Metropolitan Museum of Art.
Bill Geist on a road company musical. Billy Taylor on a young jazz pianist from Brazil. John Leonard on television. Bob Schieffer on the winds of change in Washington. The sports, the weather, and a milepost, too, after the headlines for Sunday morning, the 8th of November. 100,000 Germans are planning a rally in Berlin today to show their opposition to neo-Nazi violence in their country. 11 people have died in Germany in recent months as a result of right-wing rioting against foreigners. Alexander Dubček died last night. He was the leader of Czechoslovakia, whose democratic reforms in 1968 caused the Soviet Union to send in tanks. Dubček was ousted, but remained a hero to many of his people. He never recovered from injuries in an auto accident several weeks ago. Dubček was 70 years old. New York State's highest-ranking judge was arrested yesterday. Saul Wachtler, 62 years old, highly respected Republican judge, is charged with threatening a woman who broke off a love affair with him, trying to extort money from her and threatening to kidnap her daughter. Judge Wachtler, who had been considered a possible Republican candidate for governor of New York in 1994, is under police guard in the psychiatric wing of a hospital.
For right around 10 grand, you can get a Dodge Shadow ES with a surprise option under the hood. One hot V6. And you know what that means, don't you? Sounds like another wild ride from Dodge. Available with or without a top. People
People say Ember's steak and eggs platter is the best they've ever had. 2 farm fresh eggs, 3 buttermilk pancakes, hash brown potatoes, and a USDA choice sirloin steak, only $3.99. Come and see if you don't agree. There's only one place for food this good. Embers. Only Embers.
If you're locked into a health plan that forces you to do the paperwork, a plan that restricts emergency care when traveling, or where you never know how much you're going to pay to visit the doctor, the grass may indeed be greener on the other side of the fence. Come over to HMO Isle. It's health care you can feel good about. Member the Principal Financial Group.
Are you enjoying the retirement you deserve? With financial independence, increasing income for monthly expenses, shelter from taxes, protection of your savings, and a secure estate. When it comes to your financial needs for a secure retirement, Edward D. Jones & Company has the solutions. For convenient personal service, call your local investment representative.
Edward D. Jones & Company, serving you from 70 offices in Iowa and over 1,900 offices nationwide.
The University of Miami's football team is #1 in America this morning. The Hurricanes achieved this distinction yesterday without breaking a sweat. They had the weekend off. Arizona did the hard work for them by upsetting #1 Washington, ending the Washington Huskies' 22-game winning streak. Arizona did it with a swarming defense. They call it the Desert Swarm.
Shelley catches, ball is in the air.
Resulted in plays like this, an Arizona interception and run back in the fourth quarter that doomed Washington. The Huskies have a determined defense, too. It was good enough to stop a powerful runner on the goal line.
Just short.
But quarterback George Malaulu carried it in on the next play, 16-3, an unexpected result that rather pleased the Arizona crowd. It's a nippy November Sunday. Take a look. Binghamton, New York had 18 degrees last night. Holton, Maine, 14 degrees. It'll warm up into the 20s and 30s in the Northeast today, if you call that warming up. In much of Minnesota and North Dakota, where the temperature hasn't been above freezing for a week or so, they probably do call that warming up. Anyway, cool weather far into the south today. The southern half of the country will be sunny at least, except for some drizzle and fog in southern Texas. The north will be mostly cloudy, with light rainfall in Iowa and Illinois and snow flurries in the upper Midwest. Windy and wet today in Washington and Oregon, with snow in the northern Rockies. Tomorrow gets a little more complicated. It will be notably cooler on the west coast, notably snowier in Montana and Wyoming, notably warmer around the Great Lakes, but not until snow and freezing drizzle fall. So icy, then ice melting in Wisconsin and Michigan. Some snow flurries may occur in New York and Pennsylvania tomorrow. The southeast will be sunny and seasonable. The American individual is famous, of course, for going his own way. So it is a milepost to be able to say that last week, more than 100 million of us got together on the very same day to do the very same thing. This is what we did. Well, this is the cumulative effect of what we did. We elected Bill Clinton President of the United States. What we did, really, we did each one of us entirely alone behind a curtain in a schoolhouse or firehouse or church basement. One at a time behind a curtain, 100 million of us faced the future in the form of a ballot. And then, one at a time behind a curtain, 100 million of us chose. We did not make the same choices, of course. If you add together the votes cast for his two opponents, you find that more Americans did not vote for Bill Clinton than did vote for him. We all faced the future last week, and we did not agree on what the future ought to be. The Founding Fathers did, though, and precisely the future they planned came to pass again this election day. Our milepost is not who was elected president, but how he was elected. Behind a curtain, freely.
No one has to tell you that doing business today is more challenging than ever. But all over the world, one company is helping you meet those challenges head on, no matter what it takes. New challenges, new thinking.
Delicious. I'm surprised.
I love this cereal. These people are eating a high-fiber cereal, and they love the taste. Surprised? I'm not, because they're eating fruit and fiber. And as a nutritionist, I know Fruit and Fiber has high-fiber bran flakes, and it's the only one with plump raisins, chewy dates, walnuts, and crunchy oat clusters for a delicious taste.
Surprisingly delicious.
Post Fruit and Fiber cereal. Try it for the fiber. Love it for the taste.
This is the new Nissan Altima. It can outslalom an Acura Legend L sedan.
Wow.
It has more freeway merging power than a Mercedes 190e 2.3.
Wow.
At 55 miles an hour, its cabin is quieter than a BMW 325i's.
Wow.
And it starts at $13,000.
Wow.
The new Nissan Altima. It's time to expect more from a car.
Wow.
Shop Carpet Gallery, the home of Padman, for quality, value, and service the way it used to be.
Carpet Gallery's installation was just excellent, and I was so pleased with the thorough job that they did. They were prompt, they were clean, they swept after they put it in. It just looked great. They were really concerned that I was happy with the job before they left.
Prices are slashed on thousands of styles and colors, starting at $9.88 per square yard, and Alexander Smith starting at $15.88. Plus no payment and no interest for 6 months. Sale ends Saturday at Carpet Gallery.
Maybe it's time for a change in the cities of America, engines of our commerce, centers for our lending and investing, seed bank for our culture, the places to which the restless young still want to come to test themselves against the best. How could we have let our cities deteriorate this way? In our cover story this morning, David Culhane explores the change most wanted on the streets, a change in the way one city, Washington, sees the other cities of this country.
The Reagan-Bush era is over. The Clinton-Gore era begins.
A night of triumph and hope for some. But there's one constituency where the hope is tempered by deep skepticism. The inner cities of America.
On this day, with high hopes and brave hearts, in massive numbers, the American people have voted to make a new beginning.
Governor Clinton was elected with the help of 51% of urban voters, white, black, and Hispanic, who pinned on him all their hopes for change. For years, they've heard promises that the poverty and decay in the cities would be halted. Now, President-elect Clinton inherits responsibility for all the smoldering inner-city problems that burst into flames in Los Angeles last spring.
Bill Clinton, as president, with a strong minority vote, better be responsible, or we're going to see Los Angeles all over again.
Political scientist Sherry Babich-Jeffy thinks the new administration should understand the message from Los Angeles.
Politics. In the lexicon of government, Los Angeles is the code word.
For the inner cities.
It's a code word for the inner cities. It's a code word for the fear that someplace else might erupt. It is a code word for every issue that has been disregarded with regard to urban problems.
Here in Los Angeles, a microcosm of cities around the country, they're wondering whether this new administration has the will or the money to attack urban problems. Frustrations came to a head with riots last spring in the South Central District of Los Angeles. 51 people died, and property damage reached $1 billion.
What we saw in South Central is only part of the frustration.
The whole nation, and certainly many political leaders, said something must be done. Gloria Molina is a supervisor for Los Angeles County.
And so they all of a sudden said, we must pay attention. Let's focus our energies, our resources, and see if we can heal cities like Los Angeles. The overcrowded schools, the lack of housing, the lack of job opportunity, that hasn't changed. You can't put a little Band-Aid on it. It needs long-term attention and long-term resources, and that has not been forthcoming.
And Los Angeles is not the only city that has suffered. City governments say that over the last dozen years, federal aid for major urban programs has declined by more than 60%. Last May, the mayors and their supporters sponsored a march on Washington, a cry for help.
Why must our elected officials keep turning their heads and sending our money all over the world rather than to our cities?
We saw through the war on poverty that you can change lives, you can change communities and neighborhoods, but we stopped in the middle of that struggle.
Congresswoman Maxine Waters represents South Central Los Angeles.
If we had continued, we could have made more progress over these 12 years. But somehow, cutting off programs became the politic of the day.
Some of the buildings burned in South Central Los Angeles were only a few blocks from Maxine Waters' home.
As a matter of fact, this space was the building for one of the local city council members. And it was a place at least people could come to talk about their daily problems, you know, problems with the police or the streets being swept or, you know, the alleys being cleaned.
The fact that this is burned is kind of symbolic of the anger.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Most people won't stand around and not have a home, not have a job, not have any food to eat. Unfortunately, they end up doing things that cause this society a lot of problems.
Many other neighborhoods in Los Angeles did not erupt last spring, but they too are suffering from the same deep-seated problems.
East Los Angeles is an example of that. If anyone else would drive through it, they would say, well, things look fine here. But the reality is that when you go in there and you start looking at many of the clear statistics and talking to families, there are tremendous problems within those communities.
When you run out of this, what is the green or whatever? Okay, when you run out of them, then we'll give them some of these.
Let me get you your bread. One more of this and your bread. We never had so many people on emergency basis coming in with children. We have no food to eat. We have no money. We have no, some of them are on the street. And your bread is over here.
Dozens of families come here to the Eastmont Community Center for food.
Here you are.
Frank Jasso has been working here as a volunteer since he lost his job.
She's going that way, you going out? If they cannot use the food, they have no refrigerator, well, we'll just give them staples. We'll give them bread, we'll give them butter, we'll give them jam, some of this.
Gracias. We used to get 4 times the amount of funding that we get today to enable us to purchase food.
The Reverend Doug Smith is the executive director of the center.
In the last 2 years, we've had more than a doubling, about 2.5 times increase in the number of clients who come in initially for food just to make it through the month to feed their families.
President-elect Clinton has indicated an intention to help with programs for jobs, housing, and fighting crime. but he too will be constrained by the federal budget deficit.
Taxpayers do receive benefits by helping to fund inner-city programs if they work. And that's the message that has to be gotten across. There's a responsibility there.
There are people who are living in garages right now in North Hollywood, in Canoga Park, in Van Nuys.
Some things are happening at the local level. Last week, the organization called Rebuild LA said companies have pledged to invest more than $1 billion in the inner city. But co-chairman Peter Uberoth says government help is also needed.
Inner cities are a cancer. They're going to take the whole body down. Everybody knows that, except for some elected officials.
Uberoth criticized Congress for passing $3 billion in urban aid, but packaging it in a broader bill unacceptable to the administration. The day after the election, President Bush vetoed the bill.
So the federal government legislatively will not have done one thing since the riot in April.
Of government, a lack of
Congresswoman Maxine Waters.
It is easy to point to inner cities and to poor people and to say to America, that's the problem. It's not our problem. They caused the problem. That's blaming the victim. We can't abandon the cities. When we abandon the cities, we abandon the country.
For years, those concerned for the cities felt that no one was listening. Now their voices rise in hope.
Mr. President, the elections are over. You now occupy the most important seat in America, and Americans are looking to you for new leadership. We're looking to you for a domestic agenda that will help get our cities out of trouble.
Sherry Bebich Jeffy.
Use the presidency as a bully pulpit to make people understand that, yes, you promised change, but that change will be slow in coming, but you will work on it, and you will work on it, and you will give it more than simply token funding and token rhetoric.
At BASF, we help make carpet more colorful, more durable, more valuable for your home team. At BASF, we don't make the carpet, we make it better.
Fire from beneath the mountains of Colombia gave the land its richness. And the land gave the richness to the coffee. That's why Maxwell House blends its coffees with Colombian beans. Rich beans, rich coffee. Some are slow roasted for old-fashioned richness. Some are roasted for rich French flavor. Maxwell House uses more Colombian beans than anyone in America. The coffees of Maxwell House, blended with Colombian beans. Because better beans make better coffee.
I'm paid to buy the high-volume copies. I don't want to have to worry about them.
The corporate line from Canon.
It's simple. If our copiers are working, our people are working.
High-volume copying systems so reliable, you don't have to think about them.
All I want to know is it keeps copying, sorting, stapling. End of story.
The corporate line from Canon, the #1 copier company, and the new power in high-volume copying.
In order to qualify, you gotta be 40-something. Many of the PGA's top stars compete at the Amoco Centel Championship, continuing today on CBS.
The Cowboys served up some Texas-style revenge last week. Next on the menu, the Lions. And you thought the election was brutal. Sunday on CBS. I'm a big fan.
2 boys buried in an avalanche. As darkness falls, can they be found?
I knew if we didn't find them that night, they might not make it.
Rescue 911 Tuesday.
This is CBS.
Attention furniture shoppers, Don's Furniture has just received a semi-load of new living room groups from a leading U.S. manufacturer, and they're all on special to be sold out immediately. These stylish sets have solid oak lifetime guaranteed frames, and Don is offering them in complete 7-piece room groupings, which include the sofa, the love seat, 3 Ashley occasional tables, and 2 decorator lamps. These 7-piece groups are being sold on a first-come, first-served basis for the low price of $4.99, $5.99, and $6.99. That's right, $4.99, $5.99, and $6.99 for 7 pieces of furniture. Easy finance terms and major credit cards accepted at Don's Wholesale Furniture.
Sure, your old gas furnace still works, but with energy savings of up to 40%, the Lennox Pulse 21 gas furnace makes saying goodbye a lot easier.
At Holt Plumbing and Heating, quality is #1. Call Mila, Julie, or Deb for personalized heating and cooling service. Lennox quality with dependable dealers.
That's us at Don Wyckoff Heating. We're ready to serve you.
When energy savings a must be a Lennox.
This holiday season, send your friends on an exciting trip with romance, music, and comedy. Give them an evening of great food and entertainment at the Ingersoll. It's cheaper than tickets to Hawaii, and a trip to the Ingersoll includes our delicious buffet and a fantastic show. Through December the 1st, a gift certificate good for dinner and a show for 2 is just $32. These special gift certificates are good any night of the week for exciting upcoming shows like Nonsense and The Sound of Music. Everyone likes to have fun, so this year give a gift certificate from the Ingersoll.
Speedy Delivery, a special series of reports starting Tuesday on TV8 News.
It's Sunday morning on CBS, and here again is Charles Kuralt.
With John Leonard. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Charles. When American soldiers arrived at the gates of Dachau and Buchenwald to liberate tens of thousands of Jewish survivors, those American soldiers were black. To the inmates of the Nazi death camps, their color didn't matter. They all, we are told, looked like angels. And what the African Americans of the 761st Tank Battalion saw in the barracks and the ovens was the face of evil. This shock of recognition, a moment of transcendence like an act of grace, is the coda and the epiphany of a remarkable film on public television Wednesday night, Veterans Day. Liberators, fighting on 2 fronts in World War II, tells the story of the tankers of the 761st, from racist boot camps in the American South to segregation and disdain in England, to Omaha Beach, the Battle of the Bulge, and Buchenwald, where Gabriel met Chagall.
Well, we crossed the German border yesterday and are holding the high ground. And whoever said the colored soldiers can't fight is a damn liar.
Liberators consists of letters, diaries, and extraordinary wartime footage. Of interviews, speeches, and reunions in France and Germany, especially arranged by the program's producers, William Miles and Nina Rosenblum. Black Americans had to fight for the right to fight in their country's uniform. In basic training down south, they weren't safe on the streets. At least Patton was an equal opportunity employer.
I want you to go up there and kill them goddamn Krauts. I want you to give them a licking. I don't care what color you are, as long as...
Someday he'll come along.
And Lena Horne would sing for them.
And he'll be big and strong, the man I love.
My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of bigotry.
But even the Purple Hearts were color-coded. After more than 4 decades, these vets found some French still grateful.
This camp at one time had over 120,000 inmates. In this camp here?
And at Buchenwald, there was a conversation, as if from the abyss, on the contours and texture of suffering.
My parents committed suicide. My father was in his 40s. My mother was 38. And they took cyanide. And this was in summer of 1943. My brother knew about this. I didn't know this. He took this secret to his grave. He never told.
How did you find out?
After. So then I walked in the back of the building where he had put peoples in to give them the showers, and they gassed them. And I just cried and cried. I said, I can't believe what I see. I said, but I tell you this, no one in my lifespan can tell me that it's propaganda, because I really saw it.
You must understand that for us was the same, with no any difference, all kinds of colors in the faces of an American soldier. For us, they were angels.
So pariah spoke to pariah, outcast to outcast, scapegoat to scapegoat. You don't need me to be pious about the lesson that should have been learned. We have come a long way in the wrong direction in this country, from Goodman, Schwerner, and Cheney in Mississippi to Crown Heights and Louis Farrakhan and a fear and loathing of affirmative action. As much as conscience, we lack luster. Moments like the Epiphany in Liberators ought to have changed all of us forever. I'm reminded of the only time I sat in a room with Martin Luther King Jr. For all his sadness, I got that light, a sword, and heard those chords, a surge, and felt as well a sense of trespass, as if he were the music in a poem by Rilke, when the innermost point in us stands outside, as amazing space, as the other side of air, pure, immense, not for us to live in now. Later on in Sonnets for Orpheus, Rilke himself met an angel, a tough audience. You can't impress him with a glorious emotion, the poet told us. In the universe where he feels more powerfully, you are a novice. Wednesday night, on the other side of air, we are all novices, learning how to feel, innermost, immense.
In 1867, a man named Henri Nestle began to build a food company. His name, Nestle, meant little nest. It stood for warmth, protection, family, and shelter. Today, it stands for the very best products in 162 countries around the world.
It takes 13 boxcars just to deliver one. It's very big. It's the fuselage of a 747, and since day one, Northrop has built every one of them, every single one. After 25 years and almost 1,000 delivered to Boeing on time, you learn a lot about building big fuselages, about building a partnership, and about quality. Well, it's all made first class. Building wide bodies is a big business, and we plan on being in that business in a big way.
Northrop's making advanced technology work.
If you're printing to the LPT1, try printing to the LPT1.
C:\Windows.
The device command in this example sets up the HIM.
Oops. What did I do?
I don't know. Page
What are you
99.
guys doing? You've been fooling with that thing for 3 days now.
Making it easy to use.
So we'll be more productive.
If it is productive much longer, we'll go out of business.
If you want a computer that's easy to use, there's still only one way to go.
Happy birthday to you.
If you'd spent the last 95 years selling cars, you'd make a big deal out of it too. It's Oldsmobile's 95th birthday celebration, and your local dealer has great deals on every model. Like this Achieva. Lease it for only $209 a month and get automatic transmission, anti-lock brakes, air, power door locks, AM/FM stereo with cassette, and more. Check it out. Oldsmobile's 95th birthday celebration. It's a big deal.
Billy Taylor's here. Good morning, Billy.
Good morning, Charles.
Last week, Eugenia Zuckerman was telling us how tough it can be for women in classical music. I guess it's no easier in jazz, is it?
It really isn't, and it's a real waste of talent, because when I go around to colleges, I see all of these students who play beautifully and who really are ready. They're on a professional level. And all over the world, you've got people who can do this. And the young lady that I'm talking about today is a good example of how hard you have to work, even though you may be gorgeous or there may be a number of other attributes. You really have to be able to do something very special.
Everybody has to work hard, but women have to work harder. Huh?
Really, if they're going to make it in jazz especially. And this woman can really play the piano.
We appreciate you being here tonight. We have a great musical treat for you. Would you please welcome to the bandstand
Ileana Elias and her trio.
She is blonde, beautiful, and Brazilian. But don't let that distract you. Close your eyes for a minute and open your ears to the music of Ileana Elias. When Ileana Elias first came to New York City from Sao Paulo, Brazil, she was just 21 years old and very determined to make it in the jazz center of the world.
I started going out to clubs and with a cassette and introducing myself as a pianist, saying, hello, I'm a piano player and my name is, and here's my tape. And the reaction was actually like, huh, really?
Yeah, sure.
What's your phone number? You know, it was like, you know, I don't blame them. I mean, there's so few women, you know, that do that. The only way I could prove myself was when I had a chance to sit down and play. But when I played, I had to make sure that I did way better than all the men around.
Ileana Elias doesn't have to worry about raised eyebrows anymore. After 10 years in New York, she's a band leader, composer, pianist, and producer with 7 albums to her credit, and her own distinctive blend of America and Brazil.
What I'm doing is bringing Brazilian songs, Brazilian standards, played in a somewhat on the authentic way. And I'm trying to give some of Ileana there, you know, some of my own sound. So I'm mixing things that people know and things that people never heard, but they're just, you know, they can just touch you right, you know, in the heart. They're very beautiful.
So Brazilian gospel, huh?
Yeah, right? So 15, it's actually muted, right? It's muted until 255.
It's very difficult to have someone play in an authentic way. However, there are little things that I can say, you know, to a drummer, like, you know, but if you play, so it's like 16 notes. You know, it's got to keep that kind of syncopation, like,
Having grown up in a city of 18 million people, Ileana Elias was not at all daunted by the size of New York.
Oh my God, New York, just to give you an idea, when I moved to New York, which usually is like this big deal, I said, oh, this is a nice little town, all the little streets and, you know, little numbers.
It was in her home in Sao Paulo that young Ileana Elias fell in love with American jazz.
I used to sometimes just like put records, like those jazz records, Art Tatum playing all those things, and be crying by the little record player, you know, oh, as to read the back of the albums and recorded in New York City, So very early in my interviews, I started saying, I'm moving to New York City. I'm going to be a professional musician there.
In New York City, Ileana Elias met and married jazz trumpeter Randy Brecker, with whom she collaborated on an album named after their daughter, Amanda. But gradually, Brecker and Elias felt they had to go their separate ways.
besides the professional things, you know, that I wanted to do trio work and he wanted to do his own things, it started getting even more difficult for both, you know, just to leave the child all the time.
8-year-old Amanda has come to be a big part of a life that had been dedicated solely to music.
What I do is I try to arrange my schedule as much as possible according to her schedule. And when I really need help, my mother will run, you know, get the little shuttle, São Paulo, New York, and... My mother has been behind me all this time. My daughter has been also with me on everything I do. For example, I'm recording these nights and she has school and I have to be in the studio late. She says, that's okay, I want to be there. You know, she'll bring a pillow or something in her home and she wants to be there.
It is, generally speaking, difficult for a woman to play, isn't it?
It is. If you look, I mean, there's so few female, you know, jazz musicians. You know, you have to have so much, you have to want so much, you know, being a woman. You know how music is. I mean, I have devoted my life to it. These days are much easier. I mean, I go into a concert and someone is going to walk in. Suppose this person doesn't know who I am. This person will remember, oh, was this woman playing the piano with the blonde hair? In a way, I get more attention now, but to get to the point where I got to, you know, it was difficult.
Elias is getting lots of attention. She deserves it. She's at the top, and she plans to be there for a long, long time.
Most seed companies are happy if they can introduce 1 or 2 new hybrids a year. But at CBS, we're among the industry's top 2 corn research investors, testing more hybrids on more acres in more fields. This year, it's paying off with an incredible 21 new numbers. We're expecting quite a reaction. Plant the new numbers from CBS Seed Division.
Are you wild about antiques? Looking for quality antique furniture, glassware, jewelry, dolls, toys, and much, much more? Do you have a nose for hunting down bargains and one-of-a-kind treasures? Does news of an exciting new place with over 25,000 square feet of antiques all under one roof make you prick up your ears? Then make tracks to the Brass Armadillo Antique Mall, Southeast 14th and Indianola Road, a new breed of animal.
In the beginning, there was the ordinary chicken sandwich. Our customers stirred. We want the best chicken sandwich. So, Taco John's created the Sierra Chicken Filet Sandwich with seasoned bread, a juicy chicken breast, mild cheddar, lettuce, tomatoes, salsa, and our enticing Sierra sauce. Our customers went wild. Try our Sierra Filet Olé combo, a Sierra Chicken Filet Sandwich, potato olays, and a medium soft drink, all for only $3.79. Taco John's, more than you imagined.
Okay, you delivered me my prescription, but can I take it with my other medicine? And what about...
Sure, you can buy your prescription through the mail, but it makes more sense to shop with your independent pharmacist, someone you know and trust who will answer all of your questions. Your local pharmacist is an important part of your healthcare team and more reliable than your mailbox.
And will I get drowsy?
Look for the independent pharmacy that displays this sign, not this one.
Save on Robitussin, DM, PE, or CF. 4-ounce size, just $2.69 each.
Betsy Aaron is here to talk about the art of Rene Magritte. Good morning.
Good morning, Charles. His art is incredible.
It is, isn't it? There's a lot of anxiety in it for me, but he sure is a big deal in New York City right now.
He really is. I think it's because his images just hit you in the face. They're very, very clear. Now, if you try to figure out what they mean, that's another story. But I think those clear images come from the fact that he worked in advertising to earn a living in the beginning. In fact, the CBS eye, the slogan of this network, the logo of this network, is really a Magritte eye. They are packing the Metropolitan Museum of Art. It looks like Madison Square Garden, close to 10,000 people a day going in there. If you live in Houston and Chicago, you're going to get to see what all this Magritte excitement is all about. In the hand of Rene Magritte, the most common objects are transformed, enlarged, shocking. Who was this man who said, "Painting bores me, like everything else"?
I would say, like most melancholic people, he was ironic, sarcastic, and used to laugh in a very special, mocking way.
Harry Torchner was much more than Rene Magritte's attorney. He was a friend and fellow Belgian.
Because
in the 60s, Torchner commissioned a self-portrait from Magritte. There is no other artist, living or deceased, who would paint a self-portrait with an apple floating in front of his face.
Well, the apple was his for a long, long time. So that the apple should not surprise you. What could surprise you is that the eyes of the man behind the floating, gravitating, falling apple has his eyes open.
Which means?
Which means that Magritte is looking at you.
There was none of the artistic bohemian about Rene Magritte. He lived a sedate life in Brussels, married to the same woman, Georgette, for 45 years. He looked like a banker. He dressed like a banker, even when he was painting. And yet...
he sincerely believed that he was a magician.
William Lieberman was also a friend and is chief curator of 20th century art at New York's Metropolitan Museum of Art, where the Magritte exhibit is breaking all attendance records.
If you look at the first picture you see in the exhibition, the self-portrait, where he's seated at an easel, he is in a business suit, which most artists don't wear when they're painting, but he's painting a bird on an easel, and yet he's looking with a very fixed stare to the left, and although he's painting a bird on his easel, what he's actually looking at is an egg.
Is it enough to look at a Magritte and just feel, instead of necessarily understand what the message is, if there's any message?
Yes, I think that's true. I think a great work of art can be appreciated without really understanding its iconography.
After all, Magritte said, to the extent that my pictures have any value, they do not lend themselves to analysis.
He made the point that actually a painting does not reflect any feeling. That if you look at an onion in a painting, no tears come to your eyes.
Theories aside, people do react to Magritte,
especially children.
And the most spontaneous reactions I've seen to Prince and Marguerite is by children. 5 or 6-year-old children have no problem with René and Marguerite.
What kind of hat does he have? What kind of hat?
According to Leon Botstein, there is surrealism in music. On November 13th in New York, in a tribute to Magritte, Botstein will conduct a surrealist composition by composer John Cage.
If you consider that one of Magritte's most important contributions is forcing the audience to reconsider what is a painting in relation to what is life. In other words, when he has, this is not a pipe, right? And you see this pipe, you say, well, but of course it's a pipe. I mean, that looks like a pipe, but you say, well, it really isn't the pipe. What is it? And what is my relation to it? What's real? What is unreal? Well, Cage does the same thing. I mean, there are real sounds here. There are chords. There are unisons. There are pitches that relate to one another the way you would think it ought to relate. But there's something turned.
The painting is called The Lovers.
The lips of that man and woman can never meet. Just the physical discomfort of kissing someone through 2 pieces of cloth is rather troubling.
This one is Colossal Days.
And when he recreates his wife in a painting, he is Pygmalion, not a sculptor, but is Pygmalion a painter. It's called Attempting the Impossible. I'm not sure how much she liked that.
Naming the paintings was a group activity. Magritte and his friends suggesting and debating titles. But Magritte was the final arbiter. Its title, The Human Condition. On the Threshold of Liberty. The Survivor. This one is called The Golden Legend.
When I asked René Magritte what this was all about, because it looks like a fleet of zeppelins in French bread form flying by, he told me that this painting really was his concept of manna from heaven.
According to Magritte, the painting of flying baguettes was his interpretation of the story of Passover, the exodus of the Jews from Egypt.
He said, well, bread is exactly what Jews do not eat at Passover.
Anyone raised in Christendom naturally thinks of the Eucharist. He was nearing his death. One does have premonitions. I believe very much in that.
Does it bother you that you don't know what he is saying in some of these paintings?
No, because I'm not convinced that he always knew.
In the words of the artist, looking at my pictures sometimes gives me a strange feeling. René Magritte is not alone. Listen to William Lieberman talk about his favorite Magritte.
It's, in a way, a perfect Magritte. You can be terrified if you want, but if you want to laugh, you can laugh too. He places the characters on the stage, but you yourself have to write the scenario.
Vive la France. They say, go ahead, eat fabulous food like this and still lose weight. What's their secret? It's the French diet. Tomorrow on CBS This Morning.
Those great American malls, lots of stores and lots of crime. Surprised? The story the malls never wanted you to see. Eye on America tomorrow on the CBS Evening News. This is CBS. People say Ember's steak and eggs platter is the best they've ever had. Two farm fresh eggs, 3 buttermilk pancakes, hash brown potatoes, and a USDA choice sirloin steak, only $3.99. Come and see if you don't agree. There's only one place for food this good. Embers. Only Embers.
First, we'll go see the kids in Brainerd. Next, we'll head over to Mary's in Rapid City. Oh, then go east to West Des Moines.
No matter where you go in the heartland, chances are you'll find a Metropolitan Federal office right down the road. So you can do all your banking, just like you do at home.
So we take 53 south from Bloomer to Spooner.
53 north, dear.
Oh.
Metropolitan Federal, the Heartlands Bank.
So you're having a baby, but you're worried about the high cost of a long stay in a hospital? Well, stop worrying. More and more hospitals are offering speedy deliveries, where you could be in and out in less than 2 days. But while this speedy delivery is good for your pocketbook, is it good for you? Is it good for your newborn baby? TV8's Jill Farmer investigates in a special series of News Now reports. Speedy delivery, starting Tuesday on today's TV8 News.
Catch NFL football right here on TV8.
At BASF, we don't make the sneakers, we make them bouncier. We don't make the car, we make it more colorful. We don't make the leather, we make it jazzier. We don't make the helmet, we make it more comfortable. At BASF, we don't make a lot of the products you buy, we make a lot of the products you buy better. BASF.
The latest vehicle from GM has no moving parts. It uses no gas. It's made entirely of plastic that turns into steel. The new GM MasterCard. Every time you use it, GM will credit 5% of your purchase toward a new car or truck from GM. That could mean hundreds, even thousands of dollars in savings over and above any other discounts or rebates. And there's no annual fee. The GM card, the new financial vehicle.
Jonesy? Uh-huh. What are you doing out there?
Hiding.
Huh?
Mr. Jenkins says the package I sent him didn't get there. He's calling every 5 minutes to yell at me.
It's probably in his mailroom. Just call Federal Express. They'll tell you when it got there and who signed for it so Jenkins can yell at him instead.
All I gotta do is call Federal Express? Great.
Only Federal Express can confirm delivery in seconds. Other companies can take days.
What are you doing back there?
I didn't use Federal Express.
Next time, use Federal Express.
It's Sunday morning on CBS, and here again is Charles Kuralt.
With the return of a young Democratic president to the White House, a lot of romantics are talking about the return of Camelot. Bill Geist is here to tell us that Camelot never went anywhere.
Yeah, you saw that word in the paper a lot this week, Camelot, and it opened in 1960 with Julie Andrews and Richard Burton at exactly the same time that Kennedy was elected. Well, to my surprise, Camelot is still running, or should I say, rolling.
The trucks roll round the clock. American cornucopias on wheels, bringing all that we want, need, and desire. They can even bring utopia itself.
Camelot, Camelot, that's how conditions are.
This is the traveling road show of Camelot. Culture in a truck.
Fog must disappear. In short, there's simply not a more congenial spot for happily ever aftering than here in Camelot.
Thursday night in Tulsa, where there's not a whole lot going on of an evening, and the arrival of a Broadway musical is a big deal.
It's really super fantastic for a show like this in Tulsa. We really appreciate it.
Tra-la, it's May, the lusty month of May. That's love.
lovely month when everyone goes blissfully astray.
Comedy, romance, drama, and tragedy, all from an 18-wheeler. Plus, Robert Goulet.
We are civilized, resolved, and we shall live through this together, Excalibur.
Robert Goulet played in Camelot on Broadway 32 years ago with Julie Andrews and Richard Burton. Then he was Sir Lancelot. Now he's King Arthur and King of the Road, jousting with greasy food, lumpy mattresses, and where to do the laundry.
Some dressing rooms are about, 4 by 4, and you have to have all your clothes in there somewhere as well. It's fun. And, of course, you have different hotels and the hotel food. I can't taste my wife's cooking until December.
And beds that you can't sleep on, I suppose.
Well, it's not the same thing as your own bed, is it?
No.
No. But we brought a couple of our pillows, so in case we need...
You did?
Yes.
You brought your own, yeah.
2 pillows.
What? Do you hear me? Do you hear me, what? Come down, I say. You are
James Valentine, who plays both Merlin and King Pellinore in this production, has been doing road shows since 1957.
I particularly enjoy playing the smaller towns that don't get so many, because there is that sort of... there's a show in town.
Does that tree seem familiar? Forgive the interruption, but I appear...
Valentine says there's never a dull moment on the road. In this production, he's working with a dog named Max. Max doesn't like the road and is letting it affect his performance. For the actors, it's another stop on a 16-month tour of more than 50 cities from Cleveland to Costa Mesa.
She's still the most beautiful woman in the world.
Members of the troupe show off their girlfriends, wives, and children like so many soldiers on a long tour of duty. Marty Gold is the stage manager whose concern is moving castles quickly from one city to the next. The show closes tonight in Tulsa and opens tomorrow in Kansas City. Think it's going to be a close call in Kansas City?
Very close. Very, very close. I would say it's possible that we may go right up to showtime.
Packing for the move begins during the show. It can't wait. Trucks stand at the ready. The curtain drops and the race is on. It will rise again in Kansas City in 21 hours, 300 miles away. Thrones, kings, rocks, trees, everything must go.
All the limbs are going to go inside this thing, however the hell they fit.
Great. I need to get that one down over there.
In the middle of the night, the first truck in this convoy of culture pulls out.
Hey, Tom, do we have everybody?
The crew finishes up about 3:30 in the morning. Time for dinner and maybe a nap while rolling. Dawn, Kansas City. There are surprises at each new stop. In Kansas City, it's the tiny stage.
You know those trees that come off stage, downstage?
Where are they going to go?
They're not going to go. I don't think they're going to go.
The dance captain will have to bench a few of her dancers because of the tight squeeze.
Well, it's a little narrower than the other place, which means you don't take giant steps when you're going over to see your queen.
Upstairs, musical director John Bisser hastily puts together an orchestra, something he has to do anew in every city.
Bravo, you passed 2 tests. You can play your instruments, you can follow the conductor. I applaud you.
I don't know, it's 3 o'clock and the big tree's still on the truck.
Hey, howdy, Kansas City.
The cast arrives.
Welcome to Kansas City.
I'm not sure what I am.
A veteran knows to carry light bulbs for dreary dressing rooms.
That's better.
To a key by a sapphire shore. What a day, dark and drear. Can't you try?
The doors open in 20 minutes. Merlin is still in his bathrobe. So's Guinevere.
Letter K. Got it on this side. If it's Friday, it's Kansas City.
5 minutes. 5 minutes, please.
Where's the dog?
It's showtime.
Miraculously, everything seems in place with 30 seconds to spare.
Good show, everybody. Good show. Toy, toy. Have a good one. Boys. Hi, Mom.
Denver waits.
The first transatlantic cable connecting Ireland and America. It was made by Siemens. That was then. This is now. Today, Siemens makes telephone switches that handle 1 million calls in a single hour, carry voice, text, and data on a single phone line. And at 23 research sites in America, the people of Siemens are developing technologies to connect us all to the future. Siemens. Precision thinking.
No one has to tell you that doing business today is more challenging than ever. But all over the world, one company is helping you meet those challenges head on, no matter what it takes. New challenges, new thinking.
I feel energetic and ready to face the day.
Zane Hunter discovers breakfast with grape nuts for a week.
I love grape nuts. They kept me going the whole morning.
Grape nuts, the fat-free natural energy source.
It just had a real crunchy, nutty, different kind of flavor that stayed fresh. Old cereal's out, grape nuts is in.
Breakfast with post-grape nut cereal helps keep you going strong all morning long.
You just try it for a week, and this will become your new cereal.
In 1867, a man named Henri Nestle began to build a food company. His name, Nestle, meant little nest. It stood for warmth, protection, family, and shelter. Today, it stands for the very best products in 162 countries around the world.
Let's have a talk with Bob Schieffer in Washington. Good morning, Bob.
Well, good morning to you, Charles.
Every time one administration replaces another, I know there's a sense of change in Washington, but boy, this time it's really a sea change, isn't it?
Well, it certainly is, because the moving vans are not just up at the White House, Charles. They're up at the Capitol as well. We have all been talking for the last couple of days about 110 new members of the Congress. That's the biggest turnover up there since 1948 when Harry Truman was around. 6 women in the Senate instead of 2. Just everywhere you look, more minorities, more women in the House of Representatives. But there's also, I was going through some things this morning, Charles, there's also some differences that we haven't really talked about that really won't be noticed out in the world, but will have enormous impact. For example, on the House Ways and Means Committee, which is the committee that writes all the tax legislation for the country, there are going to be 32 new members of that committee alone. That's kind of a sea change, and you can just imagine all the jockeying that's going on already amongst the new members and members that are already here trying to just get on that committee. We're going to just see an entirely different kind of Congress, Charles, and it's going to be one of the most fascinating years, I think, that we've had around here in a long, long time.
You just mentioned tax legislation. You reckon we'll see some soon?
I don't think there's any question about it. The president-elect has said that he intends to raise taxes on the wealthy in an effort to give some kind of tax break to the middle class. So I would guess that that's one of the first pieces of legislation that we're going to see here. I think also, Charles, you recall there was a lot of legislation that was passed during the 4 years that George Bush was president. And a lot of that legislation was vetoed. Well, you're going to have a big Democratic majority in the Congress. You're going to have a big Democratic majority in the Senate. So I think you'll see legislation passed early on in this administration that is very similar to legislation that the president vetoed. One thing I would think of is family leave legislation, to give people unpaid leave when they have a family crisis, like the birth of a child or an illness for a parent or some other dependent. I think that's almost certain you'll see that passed early on in this administration. My guess is that you'll see some sort of gun control legislation, perhaps similar to the Brady bill that was vetoed by the president the last time around. I think you'll see that. I think you'll also see some sort of crime legislation passed.
You didn't mention abortion.
Well, you know, one of the interesting things that the president-elect is talking about is using his power as the chief executive to lift some of the restrictions on abortion that that President Bush imposed just through his power as president. For example, this gag rule, which forbids people in clinics, the healthcare workers there, to give advice on whether or not a person can have an abortion and how to go about getting one. That sort of thing can be lifted by the president. The limitation he put on doing research on fetal tissues. They have already said at the Clinton headquarters that one of the first things the president-elect intends to do is use his executive powers to lift some of those restrictions.
There's a certain irony, well, there are many little ironies if you look around for them. President Bush kept trying to get the capital gains tax reduced. Now, Senator Moynihan of New York said that he expects, in tandem with a income tax rise on the wealthy, that the Congress will pass a reduction in the capital gains tax.
I think you will see that, Charles, because the Senate Majority Leader, for example, George Mitchell, has always said that under certain circumstances that he would support a capital gains tax cut, but it always had to be linked to some other kind of tax on upper income families in one way or another. I think you're going to see something like that. I think one of the speaking of ironies, one of the interesting things you're going to see is that Bill Clinton has said that he favors the line item veto, which has always been the thing that Ronald Reagan always wanted, that George Bush always wanted, that the Republicans in the Congress always wanted, but that the Democrats in the Congress did not want. So I think one of the most interesting problems that will be put on the Senate Majority Leader Mitchell's plate is what's going to happen if Bill Clinton says, all right, Senator Mitchell, I've decided I want a line item veto. Well, you know, the Republicans are going to jump up and say they want that. It'll be a problem to see how the Democrats, interesting to see how they handle that.
Bob Schieffer on a time of genuine change just ahead, and he'll go on talking about this with Senator Dole and Senator Mitchell and Warren Christopher, the head of President-elect Clinton's transition team. And we thank you for talking to us.
Thank you, Charles.
I'm paid to buy the high-volume copiers. I don't want to have to worry about them.
The corporate line from Canon.
If our copiers are working, our people are working.
Reliable high-volume copiers you don't have to think about. The corporate line from Canon, the new power in high-volume copying.
In the mountains of Colombia, they celebrate the richness of the land. And from this land comes the richness of Colombian coffee. That's why Maxwell House blends its coffees with Colombian beans. Rich beans, rich coffee. Some we slow roast for old-fashioned richness. Some we roast dark for the flavor of France. We buy more Colombian beans than anyone in America. Maxwell House, blended with Colombian beans. Because better beans make better coffee.
It takes 13 boxcars just to deliver one. It's very big. It's the fuselage of a 747. And since day one, Northrop has built every one of them. Every single one. After 25 years and almost 1,000 delivered to Boeing on time, you learn a lot about building big fuselages. About building a partnership, and about quality. Well, it's all made first class. Building wide bodies is a big business, and we plan on being in that business in a big way. Northrop's making advanced technology work.
Boy, you look mad. Let me guess. Your long-distance calling plan is driving you nuts. Do they make you submit names, call at certain times, pay fees? The most from Sprint is so easy you wouldn't have to do all that. It saves you big on whoever you call the most each month automatically. Sprint understands. Sprint likes you. Sprint cares. Call now, before you forget how mad you were.
In a place called Hope, there was a celebration last Tuesday night. There's always cause for celebration when a local boy makes good.
At 104.9 FM and AM 1370, Super Country 105 is KHPA Hope Prescott.
Slaughter steers and heifers sold slow, but prices were steady. Largely choice steers brought 73 to 74 and a half, with a few mixed yearlings at 75.
And so, in the name of all those who do the work, pay the taxes, raise the kids, and play by the rules, in the name of the hard-working Americans who make up our forgotten middle class, I proudly accept your nomination for President of the United States. I am a product of that middle class.
Bill Clinton is a product of Hope, this little city in southwestern Arkansas. It's not named for expectation or aspiration, that kind of hope. It's named for the daughter of the tycoon who brought the railroad to town in the 1870s. Ever since, people here have been working the farms and hauling lumber out of the pine forests, raising their kids and playing by the rules. A lot of people in Hope remember the little boy who was born here in 1946.
He was a real friendly, happy kid. He didn't ever get into trouble.
Last Tuesday, Donna Wingfield voted for the man she has known since they grew up together on East 13th Street. About the only thing out of the ordinary she remembers is the time they were jumping rope and he broke his leg.
In fact, I can't remember to this day. I might have been one doing the rope. I don't know. I don't remember. Then, of course, I visited him quite often when he was in the hospital and stuff, being that close.
The kids in Hope never knew the future president as Bill Clinton. To them, he was Billy Blythe.
I never met my father. He was killed in a car wreck on a rainy road 3 months before I was born, driving from Chicago to Arkansas to see my mother.
Billy Blythe lived with his mother and his grandparents in a house on East 13th Street, next door to his cousin Margaret Polk and her daughter Mitzi.
He was wonderful.
Mitzi was special always.
Special. And Bill Clinton.
The death of his father and Mitzi's retardation taught him early that not everyone begins life with an even break.
Mitzi was always special to Bill, even when they were little. When they were playing, he'd always watch after Mitzi and take care of her. He'd see that Mitzi was taken care of.
When I think about opportunity for all Americans, I think about my grandfather. He ran a country store in our little town of Hope. There were no food stamps back then, so when his customers, whether they were white or black, who worked hard and did the best they could, came in with no money, well, he gave them food anyway. Just made a note of it. So did I.
Customers come in, well, Bill played with all those children. They wasn't anything different. So he's already known integration then, what we've learned later when he's been grown.
Before I was big enough to see over the counter, I learned from him to look up to people other folks look down on.
And I think he learned a lot right in that grocery store is what I think.
Last July, just before he was nominated for president, Bill Clinton returned to Hope for a family reunion.
Come on, Mitzi. Ah, there he is. Bill, hold her so I can make you a picture, honey. Lord have mercy.
Give me some sugar first. We won't be. We love you, honey. We love
Grant's here.
They all met at the home of Bill Clinton's cousin, Falba Lively, and her father, Orrin Grisham. To Bill Clinton, Mr. Grisham, 87 years old, is Uncle Buddy. In 1980, when Clinton lost his race for re-election as governor of Arkansas, he was devastated. He sought out Uncle Buddy.
He said he loved that governor's business. Left to live in that mansion. And says, I'm going to run again. Said, when would you run again? I said, come right back now. Next term, and tell them that you went wrong, you're sorry, and you want your job back. That's what he done. He went back in.
Cousin Falba Lively.
Well, he's always come back. When he had a chance, he's always come back here, and he's always referred to this as his hometown, even though he spent the majority of his boyhood years in Hot Springs, but he's always referred to this as his hometown. And I just think people always go back home. I think he'll always come back.
He can see it, he can smell it, he can taste it, but as of this second, he does not yet have it. Our CBS News coverage will continue in a moment.
On election night, Bill Clinton's friends and family gathered, as we all did, to watch television. And sure enough, the man they knew as a little boy was elected to the highest office in the land.
We did it!
Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord.
Margaret Polk will attend services this morning, as she always does, at the First Baptist Church. She said Bill Clinton will be in her prayers.
But I just ask God to guide him and just give him the courage to face this responsibility that he has and to take care of him and watch over him. That's just my simple prayer.
And it will be my message for the next 4 years. Together, we can do it. Together, we can make the country that we love everything it was meant to be. I still believe in a place called home.
This is the new Nissan Altima. It can outslalom an Acura Legend L sedan. Wow. It has more freeway merging power than a Mercedes 190e 2.3. Wow. At 55 miles an hour, its cabin is quieter than a BMW 325i's. Wow. And it starts at $13,000. Wow. The new Nissan Altima. It's time to expect more from a car.
Wow. Most people retire to Northern California for the gentle climate. Neil McBain came here to race in the fabled Monterey Historic. And Dean Witter was with him every mile of the way.
Respect the power of a client's dream and help them achieve it.
That's why 11 years ago, Dean Witter mapped out Neil's financial course with one goal in mind. Victory. Dean Witter.
We measure success one investor at a time.
Delicious. I'm surprised.
I love this cereal. These people are eating a high-fiber cereal, and they love the taste. Surprised? I'm not, because they're eating fruit and fiber. And as a nutritionist, I know fruit and fiber has high-fiber bran flakes, and it's the only one with plump raisins, chewy dates, walnuts, and crunchy oat clusters for a delicious taste.
Surprisingly delicious.
Post Fruit and Fiber cereal. Try it for the fiber. Love it for the taste.
Well, we're still at Grand Central Station. We got them lined up, and the Pitney Bowes copier is just pumping them out like a percolator.
My whole world is in this little book.
We've got all kinds of people coming up with all types of copies.
Credit cards.
Make enlargements.
My certification as a skydiver.
This is a conference on self.
Hey, handsome, how you doing?
Secrets.
Thank you.
I'm a therapist, and I've come across a lot of women who have
1,037,421 copies. The Pitney Bowes machine is still up and running, and it's running, well, it's running just like a machine.
We leave you this morning in Wisconsin at Horicon Marsh, where every fall the Canada geese fly in from out of the northern sky, perhaps expecting to stay the winter in such an inviting place. But then they get cold feet. Perhaps it's their feet that tell them after a short rest that it's time to go south again. I'm Charles Kuralt. I hope you'll join us here again next Sunday morning.
For a printed transcript, send $5 to Sunday Morning Transcript, Box 7, Livingston, New Jersey, 07039. For a video cassette of selected segments of This Sunday Morning, call 1-800-242-7747.
Experience CBS News.
Can newcomers end the Washington gridlock? Clinton Transition Director Warren Christopher and Senate leaders Dole and Mitchell face the nation today.
No hard times here. Wages are good and profits are high. Osaka? Dusseldorf? No. Euclid, Ohio. How come? Watch 60 Minutes tonight.
Sinatra is simply great. The best and classiest miniseries since Lonesome Dove, raves the Washington Post.
I told you from the start, I was going to the top.
A compelling interpretation of Sinatra. TV Guide gives it 3 stars.
Walk out that door, baby. You walk out of my life.
Sinatra, the miniseries of a lifetime, begins tonight after 60 minutes.
This is CBS.
Shop Carpet Gallery, the home of Padman, for quality, value, and service the way it used to be.
You just can't beat Carpet Gallery for their service.
They asked me if they could help me, and I said I just wanted to look. They let me look. And I was really pleased. First of all, that really impressed me when I had a headache from the other places.
I was the person to be satisfied.
Prices are slashed on thousands of styles and colors, starting at $9.88 per square yard, and Alexander Smith starting at $15.88. Plus no payment and no interest for 6 months. Sale ends Saturday at Carpet Gallery.